No, they'll never take us under, because we're bringing truth like thunder, raining on your speakers like a ton of bricks. Hold the cross high.
Most of us thrive on moral clarity, and you're going to hear right now, without naming any political party,
That's right.
but you're going to hear the a Thomistic exorcist, a professor of exorcism, Father Chad Ripperger, who's going to describe the state of politics today without naming any names, but we'll report. You decide who he's talking about. Mr. Engineer, can you play the clip?
Let's cut to the chase. We are not living in a political atmosphere where there are differences of ideas. We are living in a political atmosphere where it's good on one side and evil on another. It's not a matter of differences of ideas. The ideas that they throw out are just to promote their evil. It's that simple. If you cut to the chase of it and get down to the bottom of it, there's certain people that are just nefarious. They're just doing evil things. And how do you know this? Every single thing they do maximizes damage within the context of what they're able to do. This is the type of thing that actually ends up affecting us. I'm not going to name names. I can see it now. It'll be all over the newspapers. But the point being is that we have to recognize that this indirect oppression that we suffer is when other people do evil things to get demons involved in culture, in society, in the church, part of spiritual warfare. You have an obligation to vote. The church has reiterated the fact that John Paul II himself even said in one of his documents that each citizen, if they have the right to vote, has an obligation to vote in order to secure the common good for the society. And it's a negligence to do so. It's a sin. You have an obligation to get out there and do this. Because why? Because we have an obligation, as Leo XIII said, and as Pius XI said, and of all the saints have said, especially the popes in the last 150 years, that we have an obligation to establish the kingship of Christ even in the secular sphere. Even in the secular sphere. Everybody thinks that the most important thing in an election is the economy. No, it's not. The most important thing in any election is the spiritual and moral welfare of the citizenry. That's the most important thing in an election. The fact that we tend to think it's all about, that the primary thing is about the economy, it's the economy, stupid. No, actually, you're stupid thinking it's about the economy. It really should be about, because why? The only reason that St. Thomas says, he says in his work on De Regimini Principiis, he says, the reason that you have to promote a good economy is so that the citizens can develop virtue. That's what it's there for.
Wow.
Wow.
Every time I hear it, Jesse, clarity with charity.
Yeah, Terry, well, Thomas, that's the way they speak, and that's what we need to return to St. Thomas. Father Chad Ripper got his PhD in St. Thomas Aquinas. Same with Bishop Fulton Sheen. Yeah. He's a PhD in Thomistic philosophy. So it's interesting when you hear people like St. Bishop Fulton Sheen, in our opinion, and Father Chad Ripper, an exorcist, and you say, man, these people speak so clear, they're so understandable. It's because they're immersed in St. Thomas's thought, reason, tradition, scripture according to the magisterial interpretation. And another person, Terry, that we're always bringing on the show, that he's also a Thomist, he says the same thing, is Dr. John Horvat. He's also a Thomist. Notice how clear he speaks and right as well.
Yeah.
And Dr. Horvat says the same thing as Father Chad Ripperger. He says the only way we're going to return to have a good economy, he says, we got to return to a social moral order. And that's Dr. Horvat's. That's what he's been preaching for years. There's no return to a good economy.
That's right.
If we don't return to a good social order. And I just thought it was so beautiful the way Father Ripperger quotes St. Thomas saying that the reason that we have to promote a good economy is so that citizens develop virtue. So it's not to make a lot of money and have a lot of cars and houses. It's because if you're working, there's order in society. There's going to be order in the home, order in the family. Thievery is going to go down. Criminal behavior is going to go down because people are working. Things are functioning in order. And so if things are functioning in order, people are going to be they're not worrying about money, the finances. they can now start working on a life of virtue. It all makes sense.
And Jesse, we're tweeting that today to all of our social media because we think this is so important. And we're going to be playing this more because the election comes up, less than 90 days, and we need to be well informed. And we're not telling you how to vote. We're telling you to vote with a moral conscience, not with your pocketbook. Jess, you got this.
Here's another thing that he said that I liked. He says,
yeah.
Father Ripperger says, we're living in a political atmosphere where there is good on one side and evil on another. He says, it's not a matter of a difference of ideas. The ideas they throw out just promote evil.
Wow.
Again, I like that type of moral clarity.
Yeah.
You know, he even prefaces that. He says, let's cut to the chase. And he also says another thing that's important, that we as Catholics, this is right in the catechism, by the way, we have an obligation to vote.
Well, he says it's sinful if you're not going to vote. That clear. And, people don't hear that very often, Jesse.
It's the sin. He said it's the sin of negligence.
Sin of omission.
Not to vote because, same thing, means the same. Because he says we're obligated to vote based on the fourth commandment. It's right in the catechism.
Got it.
And I'll tell you why. The last thing, that we'll move on to another topic.
Sure.
The last 150 years of popes, the reason they have asked the citizenry to vote in elections is so that because we all have an obligation not to, again, so much worry about the economy, stupid, as he said.
Yeah.
We have an obligation as Catholics in every country to vote. Why? To build the social kingship of Christ in our country. Oh. That's why we should vote. And again, when you have a party that systematically believes in the wholesale killing of babies up until the 1 second before they're born, homosexual marriage, euthanasia, defund the police, socialism, Marxism. Terry, that's not going to build the social kingship of Christ. The social kingship of Christ is going to be built if we promote a civilization of life and love.
You got it. You sound like Pope John Paul II right there, Jesse.
Well, it looks like I read a little bit about
Just
him.
a little, brother. You grew up with him, man. Yep. Hey, Brother Jess, this article that you got me, you sent to me for this.